positive behaviors you do. Think of some things that you regard as being positive and some behaviors that you think of negative. When we say negative, positive, things you do that you would regard as being positive, and negative, things you do that you probably would regard as being negative and maybe don't want to do. Some emotions you feel. What are some emotions you enjoy feeling? Maybe love, joy, peace, happiness. And some emotions you don't particularly enjoy. It could be anger, frustration, resentment. Maybe they serve you to a point, but staying there longer than you need to stay there might not be a good idea. What you want more of in life, what you want less of. Okay, what you want more of. You might want more sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Or maybe you want less. Things you want more of, less. And Tony Robbins, for me, whatever anyone says, and there's a lot of positive feedback, everyone's got their own opinion. I as a 17-year-old, I first saw and went to see Tony Robbins. I read his book at about 16. I think it was Unlimited Power I read, yeah. And ironically, he was doing a tour. He was speaking in Sydney, where I was born and grew up. And I'd worked a summer job and saved like mad to pay for a ticket to go see him. I was working in a factory and I'd worked endlessly, and I sort of put some money away, and I knew he was coming along. I was about 17, 18 at the time, and my idea was to go there, having read the book and having been and having seen NLP before, hypnosis before, having had a coach as well, and I thought this coach had a background in psychology and in NLP and hypnosis. I knew a bit about that stuff, and I read the book, and I'd been on one or two courses even as early as then. So the point being, I thought I'd go see what he's all about. And for me, it was more for self, to go in there and really, the path of self-discovery, and I had my own limiting beliefs and the goals I wanted to achieve as well. And I felt that by going there, it could ignite something. And it did for me. It really did. I think that looking back on it now, it was a pivotal moment, a really great reference experience that I had. I wasn't academic at school, but I went on and studied obviously a number of things, and I had my own limiting beliefs. I had severe asthma as a child as well. I really struggled with asthma. I spent a lot of time in and out of A&E and medication, and severe allergy. I had to have allergy shots every week as well. And so a lot of things, and you got a lot of limitations that are going on. You kind of think, well, what's my place in the world type thing. And when I was working in the factory at that point, sort of saving up to go see him and to do other things as well, I kind of thought, I had a realization then and thought, well, I think one day I might be able to sort of, and this is not taking anything away from people who work in the factory, great people, and I worked there, and there was a really, really learning experience for me. I just felt that maybe I had a chance to sort of go on and study and do other things and compete in sports, and that was a vision I had. I thought maybe one day I can do that. I grew up around salt of the earth people, and the people I worked with were great people, and it was phenomenal. I just had this vision that maybe I could sort of go off and learn. And at that point, I never had the grades to do that. There's no way anyone would have entertained me, which is quite ironic because I've studied now at the most prestigious universities in the world and academic institutions. But if you told people at the time I would go on and do that, probably would have laughed. But from the point of view for me, it was also like sports. It was in the forefront of my mind. I had this vision to sort of travel and compete. And I felt that going there was great. So I think for me, you take out what you will, but it was a great reference experience. Now, Tony Robbins, since then, I've been to see on several occasions. I tend to go for my 5-year Tony Robbins fix, as you do. You need your Tony Robbins fix now and again. So I've been on many occasions, and this is my perspective on one of the most significant techniques I think he proposed. And Tony Robbins proposes that everybody has a reason for doing what they do, and it fits into 6 categories, according to Tony Robbins, okay, and the team that he put this together with. They say 6 human needs. Okay, for me it was a game changer. I'll honestly say that. I'll give credit where credit's due. I think for me, doing the process on myself all those years ago and carrying on doing that process periodically, it was a game changer because there's a slight degree of variation. It was like navigating a plane or a ship, changing the sail. It helped me to consciously take responsibility for my life, not blame anybody else for my circumstances. I was in charge. I'm responsible. I'm accountable. Not you, not my parents, not the teachers, not where I live, me. And that's what I got out of it, and sat down and said, if I'm going to change things, it's going to be me. Okay, there's certain cards that I was dealt with that weren't great, but so be it. You get on with it. And the first step in changing any situation is to understand how that situation meets the needs, according to Robbins. So, according to Tony Robbins, we have 6 human needs that are global. It's a human need, not a desire, inbuilt in the nervous system. The needs are, according to Tony Robbins, certainty, uncertainty, variety, significance, connection, love. The first 4 needs are fundamental needs. You will find a way to meet them. The last 2 are fulfillment, regardless of whether you meet the first 4 needs. And 5 and 6, so you've got the growth and contribution. Most people don't meet the last 2, and we'll go into that more detail shortly. And it's all in all the handouts I've given you, so don't be too concerned about writing. So examples how we prioritize our needs has an impact. Because how we prioritize our needs, how we meet them has an impact on our life. So our priority, in order of priority, and how we meet them has a big impact, which I'll go into more detail. So for example, some people value love more than certainty. Yeah? And some people value certainty more than love. So if they love you, they value certainty over love, they won't open up completely. Okay? So if someone's top need is certainty, if you try to change anything, what do you think is going to happen? Someone whose top need is certainty. Well, they're going to sort of... Precisely, exactly. In a world that's uncertainly certain. So they're going to feel scared if their top need, apprehension, fear. If someone values certainty, imagine things they can't control. Okay, so they're going to be on edge if it's at the highest end of the hierarchy. And we'll go into that in more detail. So we all have the 6 needs. It's just which of the 6 are your top 2? Which do you value the most? The driving force. So how we prioritize our needs and how we meet them has an impact on our life. According to TR, we all have the same needs. We all have the same 6 needs, though we don't value them equally. We meet them differently, which is evident, and we'll talk about as we go along. So different ways to meet the needs: negative, positive, or neutral. So you can meet them in a negative way, in a positive way, in a neutral way. And that will go into more detail shortly. Okay. So, you could make a point that I don't think that's, as far as I'm aware, it's a scientific model. But in saying that, it doesn't mean it's not a scientific model. I'm sure there's science behind it, but I certainly haven't seen the empirical research based on the questions I mentioned I used on the first day to make a judgment out there. But equally, in science, we don't know enough to know enough, in the sense that, okay, we reached the edge of a pier. That's not to say it's not a useful model. It's a very useful model. That's not to say any models you come across aren't useful for one reason or the other. I got tremendous use out of it, and thousands of people around the world get loads of good use out of it too. So, there must be some value in it. So I study neuroscience, as you're probably well aware. We're quoting the literature, and I've studied it for a while now. I don't think you can empirically test these needs, but see if it works for you. Empirical validation is not the be-all end-all, by the way. I can assure you of that. And that's coming from someone who has got a science background. If it damn works, it damn works. Take the ball and run. Okay? So we don't need to have a perfect model to have a useful model. No panacea. Until someone shows me a model that works for everybody in the world, then I'll keep exploring. That's my way of doing things. Until someone shows me something that works for everybody, one and all, and I've not seen it. I probably will never see it because of the complexity of human beings. So I found it useful at pivotal moments in my life. Okay, really, really useful. Because life throws you curveballs. things happen that you don't expect, and it's really helped me take control of my life. And many people I've worked with, whilst I don't sort of use the model like for like, there are things that I think about and contemplate and think, okay, that could be this, or this could be that. So it's quite useful understanding ourselves and others and having some awareness. Predict behaviours, okay, fulfillment, no doubt the modelling process, many successful people, you model people who are successful, you get an idea of what constitutes a success. So we talked about needs, once again to reiterate, certainty, uncertainty, variety, the second one, significance, connection, love, 4, and then you've got growth and contribution, 5 and 6. Okay, so certainty need 1. We need a degree of certainty in our relationship, in our job, in our wage. And sometimes people to meet certainty better than the devil I know. How many people do you know stay in a relationship that is a dead end or a job because it's better than the unknown? Because certainty is so important. Many people do that.
People stay on the streets for the same reason.
Well, it's a possibility, yeah, and it goes back to what we said, behaviour, so there's a possibility.
What's familiar?
Yeah, well, that's a need. That's his hypothesis. Need number 1, certainty. So we need a degree of certainty in our life. So, you need to know that certain things that you go to work tomorrow, the car's going to start. There's certain things that your wage is going to be paid on a certain day.
It links to Maslow's first part, doesn't it? About
that's a good observation.
So that's quite a deep root.
Yeah, it's a good observation.
Yeah.
It's a good observation, humanistic. Yeah, exactly. So it's a good observation. So it's things that we need to know, but it can be a good thing or a bad thing. Certainty, think about it. Need number 1. I want to sort of reflect a little bit as we go along too, by the way, but you don't have to have obviously all the answers. But think about how you meet certainty. How do you go about meeting certainty? On a spectrum of 1 to 10. Is it negative, positive, neutral? Now, you don't have to know the answers now, but the answers will come when the answers are ready and you get time to do a bit more reflection. But think about the ways, just the general ways you meet certainty for yourself, for the clients you work with, for the people around you. How they go about meeting certainty. What are some of the things that they do to feel certain? Okay? And we'll get back to it. Okay? Now, we all need it. We all need it. The question is numerically, how high is it in the pecking order? 1 to 6. And what are your rules for certainty? What are your expectations? That's the difference. We all need it. We meet it in different ways. And it's at different levels on the hierarchy. So too much certainty, the problem with that, you get like Groundhog Day. Anyone ever watched that before? Yeah. Eventually, you end up Groundhog Day. The Truman Show, anyone ever seen that? I've got to get out more, all these movies.
I've seen all of them as well.
Yeah. We need to get out more, man. The quicker you set that Jamaican thing up, the better, I think. But the thing is that we do you see the Truman Show day in, day out, same thing. What happens in the end? He just goes mad. He's like, goodness me, this is just ridiculous. Okay? So too much is a recipe for disaster. So then we need a bit of variety. It's a bit of a paradox. So we like maybe the occasional different holiday destination. Okay? Different films. And Tony Robbins makes a good point. He goes, how many people watch the same film again?
Yeah.
Which is quite fascinating in that respect. But the point being, we do want some uncertainty. But like I heard him say one time, Tony Robbins on the seminar, he goes, we like uncertainty, but as long as it's not too much of a surprise, a bad surprise, we like uncertainty, but there's a fine line between, the uncertainty that we don't want in our life and what we do. So, we do different things. You might even decide one day to take a different road to work or drive a different way. And this morning in the beautiful sunshine, I decided to drive a different way through the countryside just for the sake of, driving through the countryside. So variety is the spice of life. It's how you meet it. So I don't think it's a bad thing driving through the countryside, but there are different ways to meet it. But you've got to assess, is it positive, negative, neutral? Okay?
What do you mean by positive, negative, neutral?
Well, I suppose the question is what you regard a positive behaviour, negative one, or neutral one. Yeah, precisely. So, we will get to that. But the point being is that, so you sort of make a judgment whether that's working for you.
So a new job, for example, if it's a job that you want, that's a degree of uncertainty in that, isn't that? But if you're being imposed, like what's happened to me, being shifted to somewhere you don't want to go, that can be seen as a negative.
It could be, and the other need being significance, the third one. So, for example, significance, some people use violence to feel significant. They use violence, don't they? They can be violent because they feel if they can beat someone up, it makes them feel significant. Or they tear someone down. Okay, why do people tear people down for? On social media, why would you do it for? If someone's not done anything to you, what's the point of doing it? There's no use in doing it. You don't know that person or anything about that person, but you feel the need. You get these keyboard warriors that sit behind their keyboard and spend time tearing other people down. They feel significant by doing that. Social status. So you decide to introduce yourself at a party as being this sort of, I'm the CEO, I'm the whatever, I'm the top this or whatever. Social status. You come in swanning in for, a certain type of watch and car, and I'm not putting it down, I'm not saying anything about that, I'm just saying that's the fact is. Or you announce how many educational certificates you've got. Is that all you've got? I got 10 PhDs, that thing. You start comparing notes. I haven't really, but the point being is that, people do that, don't they? I went to this, such and such. I did it before. When I mentioned, some of the institutions I've studied at, most prestigious ones in the world, because you feel significant. We all need it. There's no point saying you don't. People say, well, not me. I don't need to feel significant. Why do you buy a certain type of watch, car, handbag? And of course you do. There's no one, mightier than thou. We're all human beings, man. So, you see, violence and status. People on social media. Next time you log on social media, look 2 minutes and see. How do you meet that? That's the key. How do you meet significance? How do you go about meeting it? Negative? Because, okay, if you decide you're going to study a course for the sake of getting the label that goes with that, and then you don't study something else. If it's a prerequisite, obviously it's a different story, but you might decide, actually, I want the title, but then you don't learn what you want to learn. See, what you really want to learn is something else that's going to be more useful to you, but actually you end up chasing the title instead, then that's probably not a good thing. Or if you go outside and decide, you know what, I've got such a sense of low self-esteem, I'm going to grab someone and just, physically attack that person for no unknown reason, because you feel significant. It's like the story that Robbins says, if someone sort of points a gun to someone's head, they feel damn significant then, because they've got that power over them, don't they? Mm-hmm. So that's one way of meeting it, but another way of meeting it is in a more positive way as well. And you think, well, actually, you know what? I can feel significant by doing many other number of things, which you can think about in neutral ways. Connection.
Also about I like giving back and helping other people. So that's really.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I suppose, you could do, and you see it sometimes. Like, I think I saw a post the other day. It might have been on, I think it was LinkedIn. I think every now and again I go on there, post the odd thing myself, write an article. But I saw someone posting saying that they'd given £10 to a homeless person. I thought, well, if you're giving £10 to a homeless person, why the hell are you broadcasting it for? But that's fine, if it gets you through today. But the point being, you've done your good deed, but you thought you'd just tell a million different people. Look at me, man, I'm such a good person. Yeah. But hey, the end result wasn't bad. He's done a good deed, but obviously it's fueled a bit of ego there.
Going back to what you were saying, Jim, about having like the named bag or the named watch. Would we do those things if we were the only person on the planet? Would we have the named watch?
Probably not. Probably, I wouldn't have thought so.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have thought so. Yeah, definitely.
It's an observation.
We wouldn't have a watch at all, I think. No, but you're right. Exactly. No matter, it's a status thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about status. Absolutely. And I think you're primed by the media and by all these things since day one, so it's not easy to get out of it. I mean, I suppose, well, what do you do? And it is what it is, isn't it? So
it's very egocentric, that need, isn't it?
yeah, well, you could argue it is to a point, I think so. You could argue, but it could work the other way too. And
on the other hand, you see, I was just contemplating why I give back and why I do it, and I almost feel, because I've come from a very working class background, I almost feel like it's because I feel guilt of having the money that I have, and so I want to help people who are less fortunate.
Well, I'm a lot less fortunate than you, so if you want to... That's all I've got is this cup of coffee and $2 in my pocket, so
I've got 3.
Because you're a self-made billionaire now. No, I understand. I'm the same, actually, and there's the old saying that... I think the irony is most people who don't have a lot of the ones probably... Yeah.
But would that be classed as a neutral, positive or negative?
Well, depends really. If you're living on, if it puts you out in the street, it's probably not a good thing. So it's about, I suppose, it's the judgment. Depends on it's self-reflection. I would see it as a good thing to a point. If more people like that, probably be a better world. But in saying that, it could be a dangerous thing too, because then you end up in a situation where you got nothing to give yourself. If that's that's one hypothesis. But the other connection is love, and the other one is connection and love. Need for, and this is strivers. People to get connection and love, they do something good or dramatic. So, I used to work in care homes before in education and delivering training to some of the staff in that environment too, CBT training. And so let me give you an example. One time I come across this situation where this young girl, what she would do is she would dislocate her shoulder every week, allegedly. And what she would do is be then admitted to A&E and put it back in again. So one could hypothesize what she was doing is, because every time she'd get home after taking the shoulder out, they'd make a big song and dance. And they do fluffy toys and teddy bear. And she was getting that sort of adulation, that feeling of love. So the reality is you probably want to ignore that behaviour. I know that sounds brutal and nasty in doing that, but eventually she'll lose her arm, isn't it? So the point being is that, can you see what I mean? So people sort of expression of a need. So for her, that was probably something dramatic. And that's just loosely speaking. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but it's giving you an idea. People sometimes get secondary gain. But equally saying you might do something good. Or I say good, I say in the sense that you might do or contribute in some sort of way. But that's a striving need too, and that's linked to survival. Of the species to a point, and that's a dangerous need to have. Well, not need to have, sorry. So that's a need that we need to explore. I really believe, because you're going to have a striver. Plenty of strivers out there. They really strive for acceptance in that respect. Let me sort of elaborate a little bit more. I don't know this person, so one shouldn't probably speak about people that I don't know. But this is my observation. I watched a documentary one time on, is it Robin Williams, the guy who, and watching the documentary on Robin Williams, as a youngster, I recall him saying on this documentary that he didn't have the affection from his parents or from his mum, I think, notably, because normally when a baby's born, the mum produces oxytocin that bonds the baby and mum together. Obviously, spectrum, some more than others, and less, but he didn't get the affection, and that's a big thing. And what he did was to make the mum laugh, a striver, make the mum laugh, and obviously by making the mum laugh, that was like striving, and he sort of carried that trait through, didn't he, into his adult life. And even though he won Academy Awards, he had that finance, he had probably everything anyone could wish for from the outside looking in. I saw the documentary and I thought he said something really chilling. He said you can feel alone around people, something along them lines. So wow, man, he didn't feel any connection.
So it's like someone that have
striving
materially, but not emotionally.
Well, striving to get that sort of, and people strive. People strive. If I'm this, and another sad documentary I saw one time was the Amy Winehouse one. And if you watch the documentary, it was really tragic because you think, you know what, this young girl is making her way in the world. There was a point that there were two moments. One moment was in the documentary was when she won the Grammy and she looked over at her mum to see if she was happy, and the mum just looked the other way, and she was like devastated. And the other point was when they went to the Caribbean on holiday with her dad, meant to go away on holiday, to enjoy themselves and get away from it all. And a damn sod invited the paparazzi, allegedly, according to the documentary. And you just thought this person here just wants, is sort of craving that sort of connection and love. Because you can have a million fans, but they don't damn know you. They don't give, they don't know who you might think one day I'll strive. And a lot of people, to be fair, in the arts do have that sort of, not all of them, but there's a significant number of them who've sort of striven their way to success, thinking that one day I'll just get to that pinnacle. So if I stand in front of 100,000 people singing, but then I realise there's no real deep connection there. Those people don't sort of, does that sort of make sense? And that's a powerful need for me, survival need. It really is. So how you get it is key. If you're sort of running around trying to please everybody and you're burning yourself out, if you decide you're going to do something just for the sake of getting, it's probably not a good thing. If you're harming yourself to get attention, not a good thing. So maybe contributing in a way that you think is providing you a connection might be a better way. So you'll find a way to meet them, the first four, which covered so far, in a negative, positive, and neutral way. And there's obviously a spectrum. As what one consider one thing or the other. A spectrum of the needs in terms of 1 to 10. So most people coast in between. You'd think there's these patterns that run the needs. So here we go again. You can sort of see, to reiterate.
Would you be able to give us these, Jim, on the slides?
So
would you be able to give us them in the handout?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's certainly worth watching some of the videos out there, if there are any, that Tony Robbins does on this area. I don't know.
There's a podcast on it.
Okay, yeah, have a listen. Yeah, I'm sure it's worth listening in. I don't know if he'll explain it better than me, but he'll probably shoot me. If he decides to sue me for doing it, I'm just going to say, Vicky said I could do it. blame somebody else. Pass the buck. But it is definitely worth listening to, for sure. Absolutely, I think it's great stuff. It really is. 5 and 6 are important for fulfillment, regardless of whether you meet the first 4 needs. 5 and 6, most people don't meet the last 2, and we'll go into more detail shortly. But they are growth, and contribution. Okay, remember the driving force are your top 2. Your top 2 are your driving force. Okay, growth and contribution, according to Tony Robbins, are the ticket, your life story, your philosophy. That will form a blueprint for your life. Those 2 there. Okay. Everyone's got a different narrative. Going forward. We've all got a different narrative to meet the needs. People will tell you what their story is. Okay, people.
Did he ever rocky start, Jim, to his life? I don't know.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. So he says. Yeah, I mean, from what I gather, I believe so. I think he'd sort of grown up in an environment where he struggled and so on and so forth. But equally in saying that, I believe so. Yeah. Different fathers come on the scene as well. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
She wasn't sober a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But he didn't reveal any of that until after she died.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So I mean that's.
Watch the documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
You need to watch his documentary.
It's a good documentary. Yeah, definitely.
Very good,
Yeah, no, definitely. And so it's really fascinating, and so people find a way to meet the first 4 needs. Criteria to meet the first 4 needs. So I suppose you can disconnect to certain patterns and think for a moment before we sort of move on. Is do you agree with the needs? Can you relate to them? How are you meeting your needs? Just being more aware, being more. I think one time I heard Tony Robbins say at a seminar, if you help people get what they want, they'll help you go where you want to go. So sort of that shared vision. That shared vision going forward. To give you an idea, I had a bit of a problem years ago. Not that I don't have any now. But around eating myself and binge eating. One of my areas was binge eating because I sort of competed in sport at a decent level, and basically after that, after having to retire for injury, as a sports person, you eat a lot of carbohydrate. Anyway, I did at that point. That was the in thing. And basically, one of the things I would do is carry on the same volumes of food. And I put on a lot of weight in a very short space of time. And I would meet the dopamine rush, the certainty, through food. That was one way to get the dopamine rush. So if I could just eat enough food to fill my stomach up, to flood the brain with dopamine, then I'd feel okay. So it was away from the pain I was experiencing, of not realising what I was hoping to aspire to be. It was just when I got at a level where I felt I'm on the way here, you know. So it was quite painful, really painful experience to sort of train for so many years and had these aspirations to just, the rug goes from under your feet. And the sugar rush was what changed the state. Okay, going forward. And every now and again, variety, you sort of change. I think I'll have that pizza with the works one night and that box of Cadbury's, whatever type thing. And it was tough. And you know, connection love was seen as a treat to go to an all you can eat. You know, for a 5-10 pound, you could just smash it big time. All you can eat over at Pizza Hut there. And I didn't have much growing up. Growing up, we didn't have much. And we didn't eat very well in that sense. So it was kind of like sometimes you go to school, no lunch and that sort of stuff. And you come home and you know, it was as it was. It was pretty tough because my mum wasn't well and my dad got injured at work. And by about 15, 16, it meant I had to do a bit of work myself in factories and that sort of make ends meet, trying to double up, doing a job in factory and go to school. Aspirations of doing stuff is pretty damn hard, hence my academia suffered too. But anyway, and you kind of think, well, it was a way to give love and connection to yourself. I deserve it. I deserve that treat. And you can see that sort of pattern. And that goes on for a while, you know, and that was, at one point I sort of sat down and thought, well, this is going to stop. And that was the point where I sort of decided to go back into football again, working as a coach in my capacity. And I thought, well, if I'm going to motivate these players, I've got to get myself back into some sort of shape here. Not good. That was my sort of philosophy. Not saying you have to do that, but that was my theory. And basically, you know what, you sort of sit down and you really think it through. So what he says that if any thought, feeling, behaviour meets at least 3 of your high needs on a spectrum, it becomes an addiction. So I became addicted to all these weird and wonderful foods because it sort of met some of the higher needs I had at the time. Example, binge eating after I gave up sport for injury. So think about it for a moment. If something meets at least 3 of your needs on a high spectrum, it becomes an addiction. That's the hypothesis, like Tony Robbins says. So some examples might be violence. What needs do you think violence meets? Significance, variety, uncertainty. You know, violence is anyone can be a thug and go on the street and grab a hold of someone with a baseball bat, and then you sort of grab a hold of one person one day and someone else the next day, and you get a different response. It's variety, uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen going forward, so how will that person react? You can see that happens. You can meet the first 4 needs and never be fulfilled because you don't grow. Growth. You're not growing by meeting the first. So I found it useful, consciously aware behaviour to rebuild and navigate life in certain situations because nothing's perfect. We always are going to go through problems. There's not a day. We're an open system. Every day we're growing and things are happening to us, and it's about sitting down and, you know, picking yourself up and going back to the drawing board. You know, this is Jim's hypothesis now. So if I get an email off anyone saying otherwise, this is my reflections. We always like to end with my reflections. I think in the Western world, the reason there's so much unfulfillment, I'm not saying there's no unfulfillment in the other world too, by the way, but I'm saying as a general rule, we run at 4 or 5 in spiral dynamic, and I think that the reason why there's not much fulfillment in the Western world is we're never good enough. We've got food, shelter, material, but we never feel good enough. You know, go out and ask people how they're good about their feeling about themselves. You rarely get people say, well, actually, you know what? Yeah. And most people in our world, Jim's hypothesis is most people in the Western world the top two needs are significance and certainty. They want to feel significant, they want to feel certain. Well, how did I draw that conclusion? Well, think of how we live our life. Okay? How do we live our life? We place a priority over what we do professionally. The first thing we do when we go to a party and meet someone new, we say straight away what we do. We're concerned about certainty, the way we build our life, around mortgages, around having a job for life, and it's self-evident. It's self-evident, the way we live our life. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, but being aware of it is not a bad place to start. So top of the tree, it may be a good point, but then you become a striver. For me, one of the issues I had around certain things I chose in my life early on was about striving. Was not ever feeling adequate. If I just can do this, I'll feel this. And you compare yourself to somebody else and think they've got more. If I can just get there, if I can just do that, if I can just do whatever. You chase your damn tail. And think about it. Years ago, I was keeping up with next door. Now you've probably got 1,000 Facebook friends and you're sort of looking to see where have they gone on holiday? What car do they drive? What do they do? And then you go away wondering what the hell. So you might feel, actually, you know what? You might log on one day and think, I feel pretty good today. I've got a better car and I'm doing better than one person. So you think, yeah, feel pretty chuffed with yourself. Then the next day, you get on board and you see someone who's doing a bit better than you. They're on holiday in the Maldives somewhere. And you think, oh, goodness me. I feel like crap now. So, and that's the way we sort of live our life to a point. You know, we're sort of comparing, and that's useful to a point, but it can be dangerous too. So, who's ever achieved something and it's never been enough for them? Just, you know, you've achieved it, but it wasn't enough. You compare yourself. You feel significant against someone who makes less money than you, who's got less qualification. So you put a post on Facebook and you got 100 likes, and the person that you know only get 1 like, and I'm better than you. I get more damn likes than you. I've got thousands of Facebook followers. But that's the truth, isn't it? Why are people so damn preoccupied? Who likes, who doesn't like? Who gives a damn? Seriously, who cares? I mean, I've got a lot of followers on social media. I don't know how it's worked out that way. Maybe I do radio and a lot of things, but what's the big deal? You know, people getting hung up, and people fall out actually, by the way. I saw people falling out over not liking each other's posts. Grown-ups. These aren't kids, man. These are grown-up adults. I'm not your friend no more. You can get my post. You know, get a life, man. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely. They should put a post with 2 fingers up.
Yeah.
No one will post no more, isn't it?
You can have a dislike post.
Exactly. Well, I'd get loads of
know
those.
that's right.
I'd find the quick way of getting loads. Yeah, but anyway, you know, so less significance to someone who wins more. So we play that sort of stupid game, and no one's going to win. And the problem is that, you know, in that point of view, is that if you want certainty in an uncertain world, it's disaster. It really is, because the point being is that if you crave certainty above love, it means you need to feel certain before love. So you'll never feel loved, and you can't guarantee anything for anyone. If you've got significance over love, you feel like you need to do something significant to feel loved. You don't have to do anything to be loved. Just be yourself. You don't have to win an award, a prize or whatever. If you do it, good for you. Wonderful, you know. But the point being, people don't feel unless they've done something. And you see it with kids early on in life. They come rushing home, and I'm all for encouraging them and competing and winning stuff, but that's not the source of the person's love, you know. Does that sort of make sense? Where all of a sudden you think, well, you know, I need to do this. I need to have that. And you've seen it. I know someone, I have a friend of mine, and she's very affluent and got everything you ever wished for and all that sort of stuff. And she uses it to a point to feel that. It's like, well, you can't buy people, man. You just can't. It just doesn't work that way. You know, you can't. You see all these hangers-on. I used to see them in football. These hangers-on, the young footballer gets a contract, and anybody's there. It's ridiculous, you know. And you think, well, it's not good. So, you know, sort of reiterating, in a relationship, you feel uncertain, love stops. Significant over love. No matter what you do, it's never enough. Okay, so the further more you start externally measuring it, so it becomes never enough because there's always someone who's got more than you. Okay, so for me, in my infinite wisdom, I started thinking, well, actually, you know what about swapping significance and certainty and swapping them around? What about sort of what about putting love and contribution on top? So you still need significance, but you still need certainty, but just shuffling the pack a little bit. Just maybe using contribution and love as a driving force. So by shifting the order, putting love and contribution over significance and certainty, you still need the other ones, but the hierarchy changes, and you sort of change the way you go about doing things, the way you feel. So love and contribution, you're more in control of what you do. Because sometimes, you contribute, but you don't get anything back. Okay, sometimes, the best way to around love is be a loving person in that respect. So you're more in control of it. You're not relying on external factors. It's internal attribution. I don't mean in every fairy way, by the way. I'm saying, generally speaking, doing things that you contribute in a way, and you won't need certain significance to do it. So people say, we talked about on the group about the audios before, about someone who had a great voice and great talent who wouldn't do an audio, and it pretty much links to that. People say to me, how do you do your videos? How do you do the audios? It's like, I went to a corporate job one time, someone says to me, he goes, oh, those videos you do, man, a lot of people love them. But one person said to me, and he said, oh, those videos you do, some of them, I don't think they're great if you're sort of making your way in the corporate world. And I said, well, why do you say that? It's because you just wear a t-shirt and that sort of stuff, and the corporate world has got this sort of code. I said, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the people who I feel need the damn thing. And that's all there is that goes to it. I don't give a damn. Your opinion matters little. I'm not doing it to feel significant. I know my stuff. I know I've been around for a long time. I know that there's young people out there who I was when I was there. And that's what matters. It's my contribution. If I can say something that resonates with them, then I've done my job. And that's what's key. Who gives a damn? And that's by changing the order. We never got around to doing any of it. Some people like your voice, some don't. Some, you do the audios, and some people say, yeah, he's got this. It's irrelevant. The intent is the key.
Can you actually change things around?
Well, we'll soon find out. If you believe you can, you probably can. If you believe you can't, you probably can't. But, who knows? It's worth a shot. If you don't try, you'll never know. I'd like to stand here and say, yeah, definitely. But in saying that, in my experience, maybe some things we can, maybe some things we can't. I've seen many of people, and it certainly worked for me. But the point being is, the more in control you are of your emotions, the better place you're going to be. Do I feel down sometimes? Yeah, of course I do. Do I feel frustrated sometimes? Of course I do. Do I get, sometimes people leave certain remarks. Of course, you're only a human being, but I don't stay there.
Is love love of self or love of others?
Well, it could be one or two of both, really, in one sense. But, if I'm grateful for the customers that buy off me, then I'm going to treat them differently in the way I would do if I'm not. If I see them as a hindrance, like some people do, and that's the whole thing. And the example being love and contribution being top two drivers. So one of the reasons I left professional football is because I felt I wasn't going to fulfill my experience on a scale that I wanted to. So I loved the game, but I wasn't fulfilled. I spent too many nights wondering, is that going to be it for me? And I could have worked my way up the game easily enough. Out there you see some of the achievements I did in the game, but I felt to myself, you know what? I felt significant being in professional football and swanning around, having all the things that you get with that. I felt damn certain at that point, but what I didn't feel is if I was contributing in the way I wanted to contribute. So I decided to leave. I was done with it. I still work in the game now on my terms. Will I go back? Maybe one day I will, maybe one day I won't. I'm working with footballers now. Tomorrow I'm working with some footballers on an educational capacity throughout the week. So I'm still doing it, but I'm doing it in a way that I can do other things too that are important to me, and that comes with a shift. So the audios, the books, all that sort of stuff. When I rebuilt my life after injury, maybe I wasn't good enough to get the level I wanted to, I don't know. Academic, I got a taste of academic, I went for it. So my first day at Loughborough doing sports performance conditioning, was quite daunting, really, because I'd never been to university before. And I was a mature age student at 23. I don't know what they'd call me now, but that's what they called me then. When the teacher taken us through this modular course, sports performance conditioning, who was a famous coach, a world-famous coach, George Gundy, who had trained the likes of Seb Coe, said to me, "Can you turn that computer?" This is these big computers, about that big, by the way. And I was too embarrassed to say I couldn't. I didn't even know the alphabet. I got the lowest score you could possibly get on graduation of school, in that lowest percentile. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what a noun was, a verb was. I know what they are now, but I got a taste of it then. And from that day onwards, about 3 or 4 hours a day of education. Okay, I taught myself, and I learned the things I want to learn, and I read books and that sort of stuff. So the idea for me at that point was, I'm going to go for my doctorate. I'm going to get as many as I can do, because I felt that's what made me feel significant. If I can just get, as many PhDs as possible, I can walk around and say, look, I've done it. But I thought to myself, you know what? That's not what I want. I'm doing that for significance. So I decided then the best way for me to grow is to learn. So I went away and studied probably more modalities than anyone that you'll ever know. Hence people say to me, geez, you do all these modalities. I got to postgraduate level in psychology and thought it's too much pathology, not possibility for me. So I went back to my sort of roots in hypnosis and to run adjacent, everything else that went with it. I pursued the neuroscience as a revised goal because I wanted to study the effects of cytokines in the blood-brain barrier. I wanted to write in the literature. Hence now I'm back on course to go for the PhD. Not because of significance, I don't even mention it. But my goal is to get that so I can write articles in the review. And one of the areas I want to study is the blood-brain barrier, because I think that's a key component of neurological conditions. So I say that to the group. It's not something I sort of broadcast, but the revised goal, hence back in the neuroscience world.
But it does fulfill more than one needs, doesn't it?
It certainly does. But the two main drivers are contribution and growth for me. It's about, okay, yeah, significance, of course it does. If I go to a room, yeah, I'm quite happy with the broadcast. I've studied at some of the most, I've studied at the likes of, I'm doing it now. I've studied under some of the greatest therapists of their generation. I've studied Erickson Institute. I've studied under some of the biggest NLP people. I've studied at Loughborough. I've studied, obviously King's. So it doesn't get much more prestigious than that. So yeah, that gives you significance. But in saying that, that's not the driver. The driver is, how can I best do the contribution? Because I could do financially and have a lot more significance by doing football, but the point being, or other jobs like that, but the seminars I do, the books I do, the manuals, radio, articles, the videos I do, a lot of them for me is just about contribution. Because you don't make much writing books that, you'll make a lot of money if you write 50 Shades of Grey, but not an informative book, There's, all these sort of things. You make money on YouTube if you do these sort of, raunchy videos, but mine don't make anything. The articles I write, I don't get a great deal from any of that. And I put a lot of time into it. The audios I do are free on iTunes. I don't charge for them. I get nothing back. And people have the cheek sometimes to sort of have a go as well. Never a good deed goes unpunished. But I don't give a damn. Because I know out of the 10,000 people who download it, there's going to be people out there that get something out of it. So you call it a self-gratification thing, maybe it is. I get out of it. I feel good for it. I can put my head on the pillow at night and I feel okay. And I get up and I'm ready to go. I've got and that's the key. So for me, it's to sort of think, and it's a lot to take on board short time. Tony Robbins does this over a full day with music and theatrics and all that sort of stuff, really. That probably wouldn't suit me. The introvert that I am, I wonder sometimes how I don't present behind the actual slide, as you do. I come out of my shell every now and again. But it's a lot to take on board, but do have a look and see what he does. And he's done loads of stuff out there. And it's really useful. It's great to understand people and others. It really helps get some direction, to let go of patterns. Really good. Really good, So two people have the same needs, just different ways of meeting them. And my epiphany is, we live in an uncertain world. At least there are some things we can control, some things we can't. And how certain can we really be? It's about letting go sometimes and just trusting in the universe that, you know what, trusting something. Just trusting something and think, you know what, I am where I need to be. The lessons are learned and I'll grow. Some things that we want to feel certain about, there's no guarantees in life. There's no guarantee that you're going to have the job to go to. There's no guarantee, you know, the person that you're in a relationship with is not, you know, going to be there. There's no guarantee for anything in life. The only guarantee you've got in life is that, you know, you're up and you're there, and if you're sort of craving for that, then you just end up you'll always need that. You need some boundaries. Obviously, you need some boundaries, but it's high up in your order, like I mentioned in the West. You're going to have, it's that sort of Western anxiety. Sometimes we just can't be. You know, why can't we just get up sometimes, just be and be at one? And one of the areas I studied extensively, and the reasons for sort of taking a detour in my studies was, you know, some Eastern philosophy. I found that really fascinating because on my journey one time to Thailand, I'd met people who had, I'm not saying everyone there was, great, but I met people who didn't. I'd spoken to Buddhists and people, and I'd met people who didn't have a great deal materialistically, but they were the most balanced people. I thought there's got to be something in this. I'm not saying for all of us to go away and become these Buddhist monks, but maybe taking that philosophy and adapting to our world would go a long way. You know, just being in the moment was a useful learning experience. And I had an epiphany out there because I realised at one point I'd done so many learnings, like a lot of us do, and there were still times I felt mixed emotions. And it wasn't until I came across this spiritual teacher, and he talked a lot about self-love, and I cringed. I couldn't stand the thought of this self-love concept, and I was, you know, what's this talking about? And he actually got me to do an exercise. He said, go away, and when you wake up in the morning, just place your hands on your heart and tell yourself, you know, I love you to yourself. And when he said that, I thought, you got to be kidding me, man. That's freaking me out, just even the thought of that. Because if you can't do that, maybe just say you're grateful. And I started, and it took me months on end to do that. And eventually I did feel that bliss. I felt okay. I've had wobbles since then, but for the most part, it was a really, really significant exercise. Because I felt that, you know, how can you give something to someone else you can't give to yourself? Start within. And if you sort of taught people young, I know it's a cliche, teach people at schools, this, that, but I really believe if you taught people at school very young the concept of love and contribution, not in an airy-fairy, you know, flower power way, wishy-washy way, just in a really solid way, because why do people do things in the end, like we've mentioned here? The path of self-destruction. We want to feel loved. It's a primal need. We want to feel wanted. But the best place to start is ourselves, not try and get it from outside.
They teach young children like things like meditation, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas I think it'd be great here to teach children.
It wouldn't do them any harm, that's for sure. You know, I think it would help a lot. Absolutely, you know, it would really help. I think young people. I think the younger you can do it, the more it sort of becomes a pathway in the brain, and it can really help considerably. You know, I'm not suggesting to go away and teach young people things as complex as this, but just basic foundations of how one can accept oneself. Because the source of a lot of maladaptive behaviour is how we feel about ourselves.
And giving themselves
States,
space.
precisely, the state that we feel, how we feel as a person, has a big implication on what we do.
Yeah.
If I'm in a good place, from a state perspective, I'm less likely to do the things that I might go away and do, because people do like self-harming, they do substance misuse, they do violence, they do all these things because they're not in a good place, state-wise. If they're in a good place of self-acceptance and self-love, they wouldn't feel the need to do that. So you kind of think it defies any logic. If you're going to build a platform, all the theories suggest that, the science points towards that, well, why don't we sort of build a society that provides food, love, food, warmth, shelter, but also, as well as that, provides an environment to flourish and grow as well, as much as one can do. It's an idea. Who knows? But anyway, on that note, we'll sort of break for some food, water and shelter. We'll get a chance to come back and summarise and go forward and doing a lot of other stuff as well afterwards and go from there. So thank you.
Thank
Is
you.
half one okay for everybody? Is that
Yeah.